All right. Hello, everyone. We're a few minutes early, as per normal. We're going to do a quick check to make sure that the audio is okay. So stick with me for a second here. We're going to check the feed on X/Twitter. Make sure that we're okay. Loud and clear. All right, cool. All right. So I have some notes. Get those so they're not in the way. Yeah, we're going to talk today about legacy. And by that I mean, really, bear with me because I make sure all these alerts and ringers and alarms and everything is off so we don't get what we had last time. We're going to talk about legacy. What previous generations have left for us. Good thing I turned that on silent, huh? Anyway, what previous generations have left to us, for us, and what we're leaving for future generations, our children and those beyond. So I was working on this as a scripted thing I was going to do as a video to make up for last week's absence of a live stream. I'm sorry if I sound a little peculiar. I am still fighting with the little sickness that's going around here in Frankfort, Kentucky. My daughter, my youngest, got it. Was sick Monday all the way through Friday, and just started feeling better yesterday. And she's at her mother's tonight, but apparently her fever broke today finally, and that's with being treated. So it's pretty persistent. But wanted to talk about this concept of legacy, about what we are putting together in our lives that's going to be passed on and remembered by future generations, whether they be, our descendants, what's written about us, or now with the advent of, YouTube and different streaming platforms, the various vlogs and such that we leave behind. But for my context, I'm going to draw a lot on, and bear with me because I'm going to bring my notes over here because there's a lot I want to touch on. I'm going to draw a lot on where we come from. I'm going to talk about where I come from a lot and what I'm working for and what I'm working towards. So, as usual, quick reminder, I am not very adept at this live streaming stuff yet, so stick with me. And of course, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them on the chat. We've got that working pretty well. And there's a few things we'll interject as we go, and we'll respond to questions in the comments. So if you have any questions or any comments or any criticisms, concerns, or whatever, go ahead and post them in the chat, and we should be able to see them. It looks like they do come up from YouTube as well as from the Twitter/X feed. So that's good, right? Cool. Housekeeping stuff over. Back in 2017, I put in the paperwork and registered Sonoma Publishing LLC here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And it was one of those things where I wanted to do everything I could to set things up a particular way. So I wasn't just starting an indie press company and a home-based business. I was starting something to build a foundation that I could build upon, to have things to leave behind for my children specifically. Now, this was born of being neck deep in really trying times in my life, financially speaking. Comparatively, my most financially successful years were in the 90s, when I did a lot of we'll say, different security contract work, right? I did a lot of different things, a lot of different places, and made decent money for the time. What I was making then would make, if it was, if I was making that same amount without adjusting for inflation today, I would be living under a bridge. But comparatively, I was making more money than I do now by a significant margin, by a very significant margin. But in 2017, my youngest was, still very, very tiny, very, very small. I had aspirations to build something that I could leave to the kids and to make it something that they would be proud to be a part of or co-owner of. And I jumped pretty much like I do in everything, headlong in with just enough research to get the legalities done. Yay, paralegal training. And set to work. I didn't go neck deep into researching crowdfunding. I read a few articles on it, seemed pretty straightforward. I knew that I had a huge hole in my skill set for marketing. Read a little bit about that. Didn't do me any good. But I have a benefit, an advantage in that I am persistent. And it turns out persistence does triumph in a lot of ways. So we set to work on putting out tabletop role-playing game books under the open game license. And at the time, the thought of another edition was still a few years down the road. And getting a foot in the door into the indie RPG market was a big deal. And I eventually wanted to get into comics as well, but I wanted to do both. I didn't want to just do one or the other. And wanted to get into a lot of other things too. Wanted to eventually get into putting out light novels, which we're working on, different merchandise, which we've done since the beginning, and then eventually get into like animation as well, which is still a long way off. I'm gonna tell you guys, you can drop $100,000 on a good animated trailer really, really quickly. That's real easy to do. A couple of minutes of animation, ridiculously expensive. But this concept of building something that would last, that would endure, and that the kids could be proud of being a part of was core to the founding of the company. Now, this little side tangent, side note. This whole concept about speaking about legacy and inheritance and leaving behind something and what we take from and receive from our previous generations that we succeed. The motivation for this came from my friend Chris, aka Mallet, who is a variety streamer on Twitch. You should definitely check him out. And my best friend, one of my best friends, I should say, because I am blessed with an abundance of better friends than I ever deserve. He had brought it up because I've been dealing a lot with, things with my dad passing, my stepdad passing this year, and a lot of things that just kind of keep the future kind of on my mind a little bit. So, Chris, this is for you, buddy. But this whole concept, this whole founding a company that was worth handing down, that motivation, the impetus, the drive, the dedication, that came from somewhere. That came from something that was instilled in me. And I don't mean biologically. I mean something that was on display in my life from a very young age that was conveyed by my grandparents and my parents. This kind of work ideology of making things the best that you can, certainly, and for a lot of different reasons, which we can go into later, but also in taking good care of the people who work with you and alongside you. And so I was fortunate, and I didn't really realize how fortunate to have such fantastic examples in my life. So, by way of example, and just with a terrible amount of brevity, my grandfathers were all veterans. And being that my family life is a little complicated, I had four grandfathers and four grandmothers. Um, my grandfathers were all World War II and Korean War veterans, which is to say, all of them either served in World War II or in Korea, and in various and different capacities. Um, we won't go in too deep to that because they had a variety of different experiences in a variety of different theaters. My grandmothers um, had a wide variety of responsibilities during the war. Um, we had people who worked in different plants, taking care of different production needs on the home front during the Second World War, and who mostly all uh, returned just to the home during the Korean conflict, and worked outside the house with in different capacities like beauty salons and clerical work and stuff like that. With the exception of one grandmother who basically stayed on base, raising my uncle and aunt. But all of these people had a tremendous workload and a tremendous attention to the quality of the work that they presented to folks, um, and took pride in what they did. And so I was really fortunate to have that kind of example. My father and my mother were two really different people from one another, who basically who got married and stay married for 20 years, basically on a dare. Is not really a dare, but that's about the closest I can come without going into a really long, crazy story. Um, my mother was meticulous and very concerned with making sure that a person's rights and privileges were respected. My dad was very hard going and very committed to taking care of the people working alongside of him. And this was a huge, huge example to me that I really didn't recognize as being so valuable until very late in life. During the 90s, when I was doing other things, I was fortunate enough to work alongside primarily combat seasoned veterans of the United States military forces. I worked alongside former Marines, former soldiers, several former Air Force guys, a couple of former Navy guys, mostly Marines and Army. Um, I learned a lot from these guys. Um, I learned a lot about camaraderie. I learned a lot about the real value in being determined to hold true to that concept that everyone goes home or no one goes home. And the whole thing that when someone you're working with gets knocked down, you help them up and you keep right on fighting. So I carry a little bit of that in with my regular day job workload, and that is the legacy that's been handed to me from all these different influences that basically motivate my vision of ethical business, right? We take care of our artists. We try to make sure we produce the highest quality materials we can. Try to make sure that we're on to the right schedule that we've predicted and that we're keeping our customers informed. And to me, it seems very basic, very common courtesy kind of concepts. And sometimes I hear about some things that people are dealing with working for others, and it just makes me shake my head. But one of my favorite things about owning and running Sinopa Publishing, writing and publishing my books, and then also Necroholic and soon other works as well, is that I get to express my creativity while I'm building a business that will one day be handed to my kids. And I want that to be something that they can take and receive unto them as like this big work that their father put in, something that he crafted for them, and hopefully something that will endure. And if they decide they don't want it, they can sell it and get whatever they want out of it. But I want to leave to them more than just a stack of comics and role playing game books and different merchandise. I want to leave behind to them something that people will say, "Hey, glad you're taking up the company. Your dad's, this book was really really good, and I liked it. And I hope you guys can do more." That kind of thing became shockingly more focused as far as a goal when my father passed away. So my stepfather died in February, but my dad died August, the end of August. And man, it's gonna be a little harder than I thought. See, my dad and I, we spoke almost every day during the week. I would talk to him about how the day job was going, how the kids were doing, standard family stuff. When I got crazy new ideas for new adventures or new stories or new comics, I would, give him a quick elevator pitch. And my dad didn't play RPGs, and he hadn't read comics since he was a kid in the early '60s. But he would listen, and if he thought it was cool, then he would ask questions. And if he didn't see interest in it, he'd be just like, "Dude, that's just not my thing. You're gonna have to find someone else to bounce that off of." I don't know. I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. The last couple of months since he passed, September, October, November, a lot of work been going on into taking care of his place, getting it ready for sale so we can close out his probate of his estate. And one thing I noticed is that on the shelf, my father had a collection of all of the books I had ever written, ever published on his bookshelf. And so he and my mother, when I was 16, had gotten into my room and basically stolen all of the writing I was doing, all the poems I'd written, all the short stories I'd written, and put them together very discreetly, and then stuck stuff back in my room. And I thought I had lost like a year and a half worth of stuff I had written, and then just one day found it under the typewriter I was using. I'm like, well, that's weird. Didn't think anything of it. And then that Christmas, um, when everyone was opening gifts and everything, my parents and my uncles and such, they passed this freaking huge box over to me, and in it were hard copy editions of the first book of my writings that were ever published. That they had gone and registered their own little publishing imprint, which I think was like $20 to do at the time or something like that, and found a printer, and then didn't edit anything, just plugged it all in, typed it all up, did the files, and this was in the '80s, so there was some work to it, and got it all done and typed up and printed at the printer. And then they handed those out to the entire family, typos and all. But I found that on the bookshelf next to Tale of the Wizard's Eye, The Draw, Glenfollow, Comet over Echo Rock, Death Comes to Glenfollow, Santa Dragon Claws, Magic Items book, and Steel Road, and Whispers of Persephone, the Sinopa Omnibus 1 and 2, 47 Furious Tales, issues 1 through 3, Reign of Ages, issues 1 through 3, Necroholic, which I published for Brian Lee, issues 1 through 3, and of course, Tibby and Her Time Traveling Psychedelic Mushrooms, issue 1. And that really hit me about what we leave behind, right? And I thought that was going to be the hardest of it. But then we did the memorial service. And here's where the legacy gets stronger in my mind. Because my father didn't just read the copies I sent them. He had kept them in his office when he first got them, and he shared them around. So the guys in the sheriff's department, the guys at the jail, folks in several different branches of the municipal government, my dad's friends and drinking buddies and hunting buddies, he had been sharing those around with them. Some of their kids had played through the adventure modules Dad loaned to them. And he never told me. But as a memorial service, a lot of people came up to me because I was Russ's son that wrote comics and game books, and people would tell me he was very proud of me and that they had enjoyed Tibby or Rain or what have you. I sent him copies of art prints that when we got them in from the test print run, so he'd have them so that he could put them up if he liked, or set them aside if he wanted to give them away to anybody or whatever. And we found them when we were going through the house. He had hung several of them in his house, which I thought was pretty cool. Works by Alexia Veldhausen mostly, but also some by Phoenix O'Ferry, God rest her soul, Damian Torres, Nick Capone, and of course Sandra Cole. My father, part of his legacy to me, outside like tangible stuff, left me with a lot to think about. My father was very fond about questioning everything with government and authority, questioning everything when science posed that it had a new solution. He wanted to look at the data. He questioned historical facts, many of which made him very controversial. But he wanted to know. He wanted to see for himself. And he was good about offering his opinion and constructive criticism, which he did for me quite often. He would encourage me to be mindful about my business practices and to remind me to make sure I'm taking good care of my people, and as well as myself. Sometimes he would say, "Hey, you're probably paying those guys too much," and we would have a disagreement about it. But I wish I could have those disagreements with him. Still, I miss him very badly. I'm gonna check my notes for a moment because we're on this whole legacy conversation. There's a lot to go over, so a lot of things I wanted to mention. My father didn't leave much tangible materials behind with his passing. Some of you guys saw my tweets and my posts on Facebook and my comments on Instagram and all the other things about I had packed up my father's motorcycle. I'm going to be working on rebuilding that over the next couple of years as soon as I learn how. My dad, as his health declined, would tell me, "Hey, I'm spending your inheritance because I'm going to New Orleans, or I'm going to Texas, or wherever he was going to go do the thing he wanted to do." And I would tell him, "Dad, it's not my inheritance. It's your money. I mean, you always said you wanted to live your life the way you're going to live it. Just, live your life, man." And I would tell him, I said, "I'd rather you enjoy yourself than leave me an extra few dollars." And I hold to that because I can honestly say that right to the end, my dad lived the best life he could. And when I saw him before they cremated him, he still had a smile on his face. And that was an amazing thing to see. This is a little hard part of this whole legacy part. That was probably the hardest part, but let me get through this. The whole concept of our legacy that we are inheriting from our parents and our predecessors, our ancestors, is that we are learning and adopt habits from and values from our ancestors, our parents, and those before them. Now, these get shaped by societal changes and income influences and cultural shifts and all this kind of thing. But we get a large part of our personalities and legacies, or legacy beliefs, I should say, from our ancestors. Now, going back to my grandparents and my parents, that had a lot to do with teaching me to try and have the mindset to find solutions and not problems. When we encounter a problem, find the solution, which has served me pretty well when things go south during a crowdfunding campaign. Like, hey, the print shop that was going to print your stuff burned down, so you're going to need to find another printer. Oh, okay. Oh, the guys who are going to make these stickers for you, they're in prison now. You're going to have to go with someone else. Thank God there's Sticker Mule. That kind of thing. But those are exaggerations, but kind of along the same line. Going. And so my legacy was being cared for and being shown by example. Some things that I consider core values that I want to put through in the company. So that's my legacy that I'm passing into the company and hopefully into my children. And so what does that mean? What does that do for the company when it's only one guy, and he's trying to put together a catalog that he can leave to the kids and build business connections and integrate different distribution and things that make the business work? Well, it means that some of the things we do, we play on hard mode. Aside from being an indie publishing outfit, and that's playing on hard mode, let me tell you, we don't cut corners on art, which means we actually pay human artists. We don't use AI for commercial product. It would be tremendously cheaper to use AI, and it would probably break my heart to do so. I don't see a day in my lifetime when I would be comfortable using AI to produce something for commercial distribution. That just doesn't sit well with me. We want artists to be able to be artists, so we pay our artists the best we can. We do everything we can to ship on time. If I have to stay up till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, there have been times when I have stayed up all night, gone back to my day job the next day, worked the whole day, no problem, come home, taking care of my little one, done the last of the little packages the next night, and then crashed. That's happened a few times. That's why we treat all of our collaborators well, because one day, God willing, my own kids will be sitting in a chair like this, looking at contracts with artists, being mindful for the company reputation, and trying to take care of the community of fans that we build. I want them to inherit a company that people trust. And not because they were tricked into it by some clever marketing scheme, or because AI ads had bombarded their social media and told them that Sonoma Publishing is the best friend of everyone who's reading comics. No. I want people to trust the company because we do what we say we're going to do. We deliver the best product we can possibly deliver every time. I want our company to be a name that is synonymous with quality, with fairness, and good, strong storytelling and fair business dealings. That's the legacy I want to put into the company and leave to the kids. When I'm gone, I don't need my picture hung up on the wall, or I don't know, a sign on the side of the building or something like that. What I need is for my kids to be able to say, hey, this is the family business that my dad built and left to me and my sibling. And we're proud to be a part of it and grateful for what he did for us. I'm really grateful to my parents. And that's a complicated statement for a lot of reasons. I'm very grateful for them. They did a lot of great things for me. So too my aunts. I have some of the best aunts in the world. I'm absolutely convinced of it. And every one of my aunts knows that they're my favorite aunt. Because it's so true. It's so true. I love them to pieces. They're the best people. And my uncles too. My uncles are fantastic. I love them to death. And all of them poured so much energy into me and my brother and my cousins. Conveying those different elements of the family legacy all to each of us, whether it's messages of faith, of family unity, of preserving family ties, of work ethic, of old family recipes, all of these different things that you get that stir together into this big melting pot of personality and values, and just so much stuff that comes from being human. And the things that really stick with us when they're gone, that's the inheritance, that's the legacy that we have. So every time you back one of Sonoma Publishing's crowdfunding campaigns, or every time you leave a review, good or bad, we want them both. Every time you share a Sonoma book with someone you love, or with the friends that you play with, you're not just supporting me in the moment, because what you're really doing is you're helping to build brick by brick this thing that I am putting together, this promise to myself and to my children of an inheritance to leave to them. So, before going further, thank you very much, everyone, for all you've done thus far to bring us this far, because we definitely couldn't have done it without you. From less than $1,000 to fund Tail the Wizard's Eye, to High Point with a little over $9,000 funding Tibby and her Time Traveling Psychedelic Mushrooms issue 1. And we've put out a lot of books. Not so much this year. This year I've been dealing with family issues, grief issues, and adjustments that had to be made due to the loss of family members. But I'm getting back to it. And so building something to leave for the kids persists. Thank you. Couldn't have done it without you. I'm sure I'm somewhere on the 3rd page of my notes by now. Surely to God I would be, right? Yeah. I think I'm past that. So let's show and tell for a minute. We're going to take a break from the legacy conversation. For those of you who are watching, thank you for sticking with us. We're 36 minutes in, so it's good to see y'all here. Actually, let's see how many people we've got over here. Looks like we've got 10 viewers, 10 views, or 10 viewers. Hard to say. Looks like 14 views total and 10 viewers currently. Cool. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you. So, as you guys know, we do make some really cool art prints as well as books and comics. And so yesterday I did an unboxing because we got a batch in of test prints that were in a day earlier, or 2 days earlier than expected, because I was getting them Monday. I'll show this off a little bit. Cthulhu. It's hard to make out at this angle, but I need to turn it so it doesn't glare, as you see. But this is Cthulhu under the moon, destroying a destroyer at sea. Art's by Tony Ojeda, who did all of the work for Death Comes to Glenfollow as far as art goes. Absolutely remarkable man. Love his work. Now this next part is definitely not safe for work. So if someone could tag Jacob, aka Chibi Reviews, on this, because I think he'll like to see it. But by Damian Torres. Now this is a splash page from the inside of Tibby and Her Time Traveling Psychedelic Mushrooms issue 2, which we did not successfully fund on the last try, and we're going to try and fund that next year along with several others. This is not the interior color job. The interior color job is done by Dakota Erhan, which is absolutely stunning in its own right. What happened is that Damien had an urge, an impulse, an inspiration, an artistic moment. Artistic, not autistic. Artistic. Damien, I'm not calling you autistic, I promise. I'm saying artistic. Anyway, he had a moment and decided he wanted to color up his line art for that. Wasn't something he brought up. He was just doing it for fun and to experiment and to test his bounds a little bit and try coloring in a manner a little differently than what he usually colors at. And as you saw, the results were absolutely amazing. So he showed me, we had a conversation, we made a deal. I bought all the rights for it, and here we are. We will be sending him a bunch of those for copies, probably 25, 30 or something like that, once we get the full press run done. Maybe more, I don't know yet. And we'll probably do a quick little crowdfunding campaign. I'm thinking about doing it on Fund My Comic, just because it'll get live quicker, and we won't have as much of a wait for the turnaround time to get the funding, and then we can get everyone's stuff done. But I think just get these out and get them done, and actually get a bigger press run. So for those of you who are wondering, we're going to go a little behind the curtain here on this. The whole thing about doing larger press runs is that you can get them at, get my actual print shop in front of me, get them at a better price per unit. Now, where that's important is when you're trying to put stuff in stores, certainly you need a lower price point. And when you are wanting to maximize your revenue per unit sold. So, for example, let's go ahead and find 11 by 17, and we will match this on this badass thing that we had. So let's say we want to do like a normal size press run on one of those. And for art prints 11 by 17, I'll usually do about 500. Okay. So 500 is going to come out to $435 after shipping. It's about 87 cents a piece, right? So we usually charge $10 to $15 per print, depending on when we're at cons. Let me clarify. When we're at cons, we charge $10 to $15 a print. Usually about on which crowdfunding platform we're on, and we get that out. And what this does is it helps us to recover our money from our investment on the art, which can be anywhere from $250 to $500 or more, depending on the artist and the work being done. So, in short, doing like a run of 500, you can usually have everything completely paid for in about 75 units sold, right? And then it's easier to go in and say, like, have a sale day and say, hey, we're going to do these at $10 a piece rather than 15, or have specials like we do at some conventions with stuff that's already profitable, and we do like, hey, it's $10 each or 3 for $20 or whatever we're doing, depending on how much it costs to be on that con, right? So all of that comes together to, again, feed the machine that lets us keep paying artists to make cool stuff to go with the writing, which is usually me on everything so far except Necroholic, and keep building that legacy to hand down to the kiddos. It has. I've talked a few times about the loss we've had in the family this year between my stepdad, my dad, and the cousin. And it's had a pretty profound impact all the way around. We all lose people that are dear to us. It's just part of life. And every time you lose somebody, you're always struck by how profoundly their loss affects you and those around you. Get that glare off my eyes. But I guess that's why that concept that we're talking about today, the legacy, the inheritance of our morals and our information and our traditions, and the tangible stuff like the company and my dad's motorcycle. These little things that we leave behind show the mark that we have left on the world. So for all of you who are parents, uncles, aunts, all of you who are grandparents, you've left a profound mark on the world. Your influence on the next generation of humans does a lot to guide the future. Because you can have amazing technology and shitty humans are going to do something terrible with it. Or you have freaking rudimentary sticks and stones and hammers and chisels, but good people with a profound work ethic and a tremendous amount of patience will build the cathedral at Notre Dame, or the Sistine Chapel, or the pyramids at Tenochtitlan, or the pyramids of Giza, or the obelisks that you see in Cambodia. Am I supposed to talk about those? Anyway, probably not. All of humanity, thousands of years of history, variety of different beliefs, multitude of different faiths, innovations and regressions, art explosions and then art condemnations and oppression, dozens of different government models, financial models, horrors and atrocities, and then those wonderful moments that stand out of human kindness, beauty, and general goodness. Hopefully, the legacy that we leave to our children leads to less atrocities. Seen enough of those. Probably going to see several more before I'm dead. I guess for us who are still living with the memories of those who came before us, the legacy is those little things that stand out in our memories of them. Certain sayings and turns of phrase and the way they laughed. This video is hard to do. So thank you all for your patience with me on this one. The concept of legacy and inheritance is one beyond just like the legal definitions. It is beyond heredity and genetics. It is beyond cultural identity. It is something essential to what has made us the dominant species on the planet, in that we have passed on our knowledge, usually, passed on our arts and our beliefs and the things that we believe and hold to be true and important, and things that we want our descendants to know so that it would help them not just survive, but to thrive and enjoy life. And that's what I'm trying to do. There's a lot of little caveats in there about how precise it has to be. For all the artists who work with me, you probably already knew there was something to a lot of this with the way that we communicate and the way we talk and the way we handle things. I often say that people are more important than money. The hardcore realist will tell me that you can always hire other people, but that you need the money to do so. And I guess that's true. But the fact of the matter is, when an artist contacts me and his aunt is in the hospital and he's got a deadline in 4 days, well, if I didn't have extra time planned in the production that could give him a couple more days, then there's a failure to plan on my part. That's part of the responsibility as well. I usually try to have some wiggle room. That said, artists, hit your deadlines. Okay? Please. But if you're sick, or if you have a relative in the hospital, or you have another type of calamity, reach out to me and We'll figure something out. People are more important than money. But we got to make the money so we can pay the people. Side tangent. There's been a lot of talk about, over the last couple of years particularly, about the concept of, an age of abundance and universal basic income and universal abundant income and the elimination of poverty and basically a creation of a standardization of worldwide wealth, where people don't have to suffer due to poor logistics, where you don't have people who live in abject poverty, where education is available to everyone and people can pursue their interests without being yoked to a system that demands 33% of their living hours every day, or more, 50 or whatever, how many hours you're working, in order just to stay fed. I don't think I'm going to live to see that day. I think the cultural transition will take longer than the technological transition. There is a lot of inertia within the systems that we've created over the last 3,000 years, where debts are owed and expected to be paid, and sometimes those debts transcend the debtors. So debts to companies, debts from companies, debts from nations, they can outlive the people who are signing those contracts, certainly. There are a lot of things that point to a coming age of change. And so maybe, just maybe, in a world where there isn't poverty any longer and where everyone can pursue their own interests, where they can be the musician they want to be, where they can, focus their attentions on studying astronomy or, studying literature or, hiking, fishing, or mountaineering, where people can, focus on their desire to clean up the environment or, explore the oceans or explore space, where people have tremendous opportunities that are no longer shackled by the chains of poverty, where people can create comics and games and cartoons. I think that in a world like that, it is going to be very important that those of us who come before that time leave a legacy to our children and their children beyond them that prepares them not just to be able to handle the coming change in society, but also to preserve those things that we found important and worth saving, worth remembering, and worth cherishing. And I guess in that way, we are someone's ancestors, and the legacy we are leaving behind for them is the one we are building right now. Let's make it a good one. All right. Well, for the handful of you guys, I guess 16 people who've been watching us tonight, I want to say thank you guys for being here. Next week, we're going to talk a little less heavy subject, something a little more lighthearted, I think. maybe we'll share some holiday stories for Thanksgiving and some holiday plans for the Christmas season and for Hanukkah. Yeah, could be fun. Do holiday streams, post holiday streams, probably a better idea. So for all of you in the United States and abroad who are going to be celebrating Thanksgiving this coming week, so that's our Americans and American adjacents, because I understand that over in the UK, a lot of you guys are taking the opportunity to celebrate Thanksgiving in the UK as just kind of this neat holiday, which kind of reminds me about, people in Kentucky celebrating Cinco de Mayo, which is an interesting twist of fate. Um, yeah. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Until next time, please make sure you stay hydrated. Take your vitamins, get your exercise. See your doctor if you need to. Take your medication. Don't let the world shackle you. Always hold your head high, because at the end of the day, you are a human being and made in the image of God, as it were. So hold your head up high. And please remember, in a world where you can be anything, please choose to be kind. Sam Quentin with Sonoma Publishing, right here in Frankfort, Kentucky. You have a great evening. Wherever you may be.